This is Jared with MetalSpeak.com, here with a review of Red Forest by If These Trees Could Talk. This album was released back on March 20th. It was actually self-released by the band. If These Trees Could Talk are an instrumental post-metal band, so I've actually got a lot of ground to cover here, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the categories. For brutality, I'm going to give this album a 7 out of 10. I'm just going to say right from the outset that trying to judge this album or this band's other music based on raw brutality is just it's pretty stupid because it's not brutal music. It's instrumental, it's atmospheric. So trying to judge it on brutality just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the music is pretty darn heavy. It's got a lot of atmosphere, a lot of heft to it, a lot going on with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the 7 out of 10 on that one. For songwriting, I'm going to give the album a 10 out of 10. Here's actually where I'm going to spend most of my time on the album. I'd like to think on some level that it's a given that instrumental bands really have their work cut out for them in the songwriting department because they have to play with a certain rhetorical flair that allows the instruments to tell the musical story, if you will. On Red Forest, If These Trees Could Talk do this in spades. The album's opener is kind of your standard issue, stock, ambient noise rock track that seems to be the MO of most of these bands, which can get kind of boring at first. But when that segues into the first fire, this song is just, it's heavy, it's ethereal, it just immediately establishes the band's superb songwriting chops. Next is The Barren Lands of the Modern Dinosaur, which was more or less the first song the band kind of released to the public prior to the album's release. This song is where things in the album really get awesome. Try to imagine some of your favorite tracks from like ISIS or Cult of Luna, only without the vocals, or like the typical 4 to 5 minutes of some droning riff repeated over and over, and it just straight goes for the build-up and that crescendo around the 3-minute mark. The riffs and leads from that point on are so amazing that I'm hard-pressed for a vocabulary to describe them, actually. I'm hesitant to simply boil this band down to like ISIS without vocals, as they definitely have a whole lot more going on than that. From the title track to the Aleutian Clouds and everything after, this album is pure ear candy for anybody who's a fan of this kind of music, this kind of instrumental metal or post rock. I feel compelled to add, however, that this band has a lot more in common with Scale the Summit than they would with like Animals of Leaders, Cloud Kicker, or any of the other kind of gent prog metal bands. If that's the kind of stuff you're into, that's probably not going to be your cup of tea. More like This Will Destroy You and bands along those lines, but probably just a little heavier. Russian Circles would probably be another one. Mogwai, things along those lines. It's probably gonna fit better than any of the others. The album isn't really jam-packed with a whole lot of technical stuff, but it has a lot more feeling and atmosphere than 97% of the stuff out there that seems to be kind of passed off as the instrumental kind of prog rock these days. So. Very, very, very solid album. For production, I gave the album a 10 out of 10. The album is really well produced. The guitars, as the main rhetorical instrument of the proceedings, really shine through in the mix. The low-end production is really rich and powerful without being overbearing. The music, while comparatively mellow, should be enjoyed at increased volume so as to allow maximum listener immersion in the proceedings. Sit down with a good pair of Bose headphones and crank it. You'll be glad you did. On repeat listenability, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I'd say my instrumental post-rock collection is probably comparatively small compared to your average Pitchfork zombie. But it's safe to assume that this band stands out well ahead of all the others. I can't help but think that on some level it's a bit unfair to judge this album on the merits of whether or not I would listen to it repeatedly. I would say that just because instrumental post-rock isn't something I listen to regularly. But I'd say out of all of the instrumental post-rock in my iPod, this probably gets the most plays. It's just the thing is, I really have to be in the mood for this type of music, and this mood really strikes me once in a great while. But when it does, this is the one that I put on. So overall, artwork and layout, 7 out of 10. In the lower cost, or in the age of lower cost digital promotion, it's tough to make a judgment call about a thumbnail. The album is called Red Forest, and it has a picture of, wait for it, a forest that's red. Woo! Be that as it may, I can't really in good conscience drag the score of the album down based solely on the artwork. Truth is, it's only okay, but the music is what matters here. So Overall, I'm giving the album an 8.4 out of 10. I spent a lot of time with this album off and on since it was sent to us back in I think January, February. And really, I've tried very hard, very diligently to kind of come up with a a word or a series of descriptors that would accurately commute to you what a pure joy it is to have this album playing. And I can't really describe it. I can't really find anything that does it justice. So I'm just gonna tell you to go find the album and make up your own damn mind. Because apparently I'm at least 84% sure that some of you will dig it as much as I do. Thanks.